All right, you guys can go ahead and get started.
Okay, George, let me.
All right, and I think we are good to go.
Okay, Kevin, are we recording too? Or do I need to hit record down below?
Recording as well.
Kevin?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
you're recording. You're recording and live, and you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. And George, I made you co-host. And welcome everyone this morning. I just want to let you know that we are live on YouTube. So please be mindful of what you're saying. And since it is 10:03, we're going to go ahead and get started. Not everyone's on, but there would be 19 of us. And please be mindful that Laura Kelly and Felicia Sykes-Loman have issues with their mother this morning, and both are dealing with some family issues and won't be on this call. So we'll miss them. But George, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Alrighty, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first VACEG meeting of the 2020-21 school year. Very different than years past, that now that we're virtual and streaming live on YouTube, but I'm still looking forward to doing some of the cool work that we've been doing in years past. We've got some new members today, and so what we're going to do is, if we could kind of go through and just make quick introductions to everybody who is here today. If you go down on the side, there's a list of people. We can go through that order, else I can just call people's names and to kind of introduce themselves. Yeah, maybe we should just do it that way. That might be a little bit less confusing. Sarah Haywood, did you want to start?
Sure. So I am the real Sarah Haywood. I shared my link with Doran this morning, so that's why you see two of us on there. I am the vice chair. This is my second term on the committee, and George is right. We really do some exciting work together, and it's nice to meet everyone from different realms and perspectives and work together to advocate for our gifted students and their families. So I'm excited to get this year started. And I guess I did not even say any background. So I'm for York County Public Schools, and I'm the gifted coordinator.
Cool. Thanks, Sarah. Let's go to Melanie.
Hi, I'm Dr. Melanie Lichtenstein, and this is my first year. I'm the Talent Development Specialist for Albemarle County Schools.
And Kirsten.
Hi, sorry, I was a couple minutes late.
We're just going around introducing ourselves.
Okay, that's what I.
Sorry, I saw your name pop in, and so I wasn't sure. I apologize if I caught you off guard on that.
No, that's okay. So just introduce where we're from. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kirsten Maloney. I'm the coordinator for advanced academic programs in Fairfax County Public Schools.
And how about Cheryl?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Lindemann from Lynchburg, Virginia, and I'm currently a teacher educator, assistant professor of education at Randolph College, but a retired academic year Governor School faculty member.
And Dara?
Good morning. I am Dara Hall. I am the Executive Director of Teacher Education and Student Success at James Madison University. On VACEG, I actually serve as a parent representative for Rockingham County Public Schools.
Jan Holmes?
Hello, I'm Janet Holmes, and I am the chairperson on the Fredericksburg City Public School Board.
And Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Tuppence. I am a gifted resource teacher for King William County Public Schools for secondary grades 6 through 12. And I'm in year 3 of my first term on this committee, and I really enjoy being a part of this group.
Corey Williams.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Garrett Williams. I am also an educator in Williamsburg, James City County Public Schools. I'm currently in my classroom. And I teach gifted as well, and I'm the honors program facilitator for War Hill High School. I am in my 3rd year of my first term on VACG. Thank you. Good morning.
Dr. Rodney Berry.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rodney Berry. I'm the State Superintendent of Education for Department of Corrections. Before my term in this role, I was Division Superintendent of Nottoway County Public Schools. And I can't remember if I'm in my 2nd or 3rd term, one of the two. I think it's the 2nd term. 2nd year, actually, 2nd year of the first term. So it's good to see all of you all again. I think this is my first meeting of this year. I had to miss the last meeting because of another commitment. So again, it's great to see you all. Thank you all.
Roseanne Williamson.
Hi, I'm Roseanne Williamson. I am the director of Mountain Vista Governor's School up in Fauquier and Frederick County and surrounding areas. And I also teach gifted classes for Shenandoah University. And I am in the 2nd year of my first term on the board. Good to see everybody.
And the other Sarah Haywood, who is actually Dorn this morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dornzuela Wilkins McCory, also known as Sarah Haywood. No, just kidding. I'm in my 2nd term. I'm the secretary, and I'm in my 2nd term, and I am a gifted coordinator in the Office of Gifted Programs in Virginia Beach City Public Schools.
Dorn, if you go into the top corner, there's 3 dots. You can rename your screen.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Let's see, Sarah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Sarah.
I think it's me.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
sorry.
Hi, I'm Sarah Madukis. I'm the gifted coordinator for Scott County Schools. I'm also an assistant principal, and I teach a gifted course for UVA WISE.
And Donna.
Donna Poland, Department of Education, even though it says Office of STEM, but I don't see the 3 dots at the top of my screen.
It's in your picture.
In your picture. It's in your picture.
Oh, in my picture. Oh, yes, I do see that. Okay.
And so looking through, I believe I got to everybody, right? Cool. And I'm George Full. I'm the Gifted Education Coordinator in Chesterfield County Public Schools. This is actually the last year of my 2nd term on the VACEG, and I serve as chair, and I always look forward to our meetings because it's such fun work at our meetings and accomplish a lot in a very little period of time. And just I'm excited to see what we do this year, and I just wanted to thank Donna for her leadership as well at the state level and really advocating for gifted learners. We see a lot of that through our committee, and I just wanted to give that shout out today as we get started.
Okay.
The next thing on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would like to entertain a motion to modify this agenda. Currently, it says that we will divide members into subcommittees. And today, we will not do that activity as part of our structure of our meeting. So I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to reflect that we will not meet as subcommittees, which would just eliminate that, that item. We will still brainstorm possible changes, but we will do that a little bit differently today.
Do you need a second, or you just need to, how you want to do this, Mr. Fogle?
If we could just, I think we have to have a first and a second and a vote on modifying the agenda. So I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the suggested changes.
Second.
Okay, who was the second?
Me, Dorn.
Okay. And then to take our little vote, if let's see, I've never done it in the chat box in a webinar format.
You could do it in the participants panel for the raise hand, or you.
Oh, look at that! Yeah, perfect.
Or a thumbs up, whichever one you want to do.
Let's see.
Raise my hand.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just raise our hand in the panelists thing to.
I don't have a raised hand, so I'm going to do it in real life.
Yeah, I don't see where you do make that. Where you do that?
So you click on the panelists on your tray at the bottom, and then on the right-hand corner it says.
Oh, I see. You can raise your hand.
Yeah, it says invite, mute me, or raise hand. You can click the raise hand.
Perfect.
I still don't see that.
So did you click the panelists?
Oh, I see it. Okay, participants.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's very hidden.
Mm-hmm.
We got you, Rodney. Okay, I can see your hand.
Oh, can you see? Okay, I don't even.
No. Go to the participants and click it.
Oh, I got it.
There you go.
All right. We're learning.
We are.
All right, so it looks like that we have an approved agenda for today that is has been modified just slightly. So let's move on. The next thing that we have on our agenda is to a Department of Education report from Donna Poland.
Okay. There's a lot to talk about. First off, I have met with new coordinators, and I think we had about 32 new coordinators on that meeting, but maybe a few that were not able to attend. So again, it's quite a turnover when you think about 132 school divisions with somewhere around 35 new coordinators. And, you know, every year that's about the typical number. It was a good meeting. It was virtual, and, you know, I think they're all ready to start the new year with their virtual school options. And I mean, I'm looking forward to the time where we can at least meet them in person. Recently, we had the consortium hosted kind of a get-together with myself and other coordinators across the state. And I think that was very successful and got a lot of updates that I gave the gifted coordinators and a lot of feedback on information. One of the things that did come out of that was that the math department here at the VDOE is interested in meeting with some of the gifted coordinators across the state that might either have a program where they accelerate students through the math, or they don't. And that's fine too, because the math department is looking at ways they might support those school divisions to go a little bit more in depth for students who are gifted, even though they may not, the school division may not have an accelerated math program. So I have gotten a lot of people to volunteer for that, and hopefully that meeting will be towards a little bit closer towards the end of the month. There is a lot going on with academic year governor schools. If you haven't been part or listened to part of the conversations that have been happening with regard to admission criteria for these programs, there has been several meetings by the Secretary of Education with a group he put together during the month of July that talked about looking at different options for admission criteria for academic year governor schools. At the same time, there was a bill that went through the General Assembly that required governor school directors to provide a diversity report to the governor through the DOE to the governor. And that report was due October 1. So all the academic year governor schools have completed those, except for TJ, which they have till, the deadline has been extended till October 12th in order to accommodate some changes they may have in their admission process. I'm not certain exactly what will happen over the course of the year with regard to changes that academic year governor schools may have to make with their application process, but that will be something that will be constantly updated at our meetings. And I am trying to be involved as much as I can with that. I know VAG is having some type of virtual seminar coming up, and I'll maybe let Doran speak to that if you would for a minute.
Okay, so yes, we are having our virtual VA Gifted virtual fall seminar Saturday, October 10th, 2020. It starts out at, our DJ begins at 7:30, so you can be acclimated, but our keynote speaker is Dr. Yvette Jackson. Her expertise from Columbia University. She's going to be speaking about underrepresented populations, neuroscience, and some social emotional learning. She has 3 books out currently, but one that she really focuses on is the pedagogy of confidence. And we're super excited to have her here. We also have breakout sessions that began at 9:45 to 10:45. Mr. Ken Dixon is going to be speaking about the Bill of Rights for students of color. We have Christine Turo-Shields. She is going to be speaking about trauma, post-traumatic growth. She's from SING, and she's licensed. She's got lots of things that she does, but she's an expert in that area. And Dr. Brian Housen from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington will be sharing his expertise regarding personalized learning. And he's a guru in technology, and he will share his information. Then there's like a 15-minute break at 11 o'clock. We have our second round of breakouts, and we have Dr. Ashley Carpenter from William & Mary, and she's going to be talking about instructional models. We have Dr. Scott Peters from the University of Wisconsin. He's going to share about local norms. We have Carol, I hope I pronounced her name right, Malog from the Supporting Emotional Needs for the Gifted. She's going to share about the affective domain, particularly overexcitabilities and asynchronous development. And there's one more, and it's escaping my mind right now. Sarah, I can't remember who wait a minute, I'm trying to think. I've got it written down it'll come back to me. There's one more. Oh, I'm sorry. The wonderful and unforgettable Dr. Jack Naglieri is going to share his expertise because he was with us in August when we had our first virtual seminar, and he's going to, and Hurricane Isaias shut him down, put him in the dark. So he decided to come back and share his second breakout session with us this time again. So we're super excited to have him. He's going to discuss the elephant in the room, dealing with assessment and how to identify underrepresented populations. And I think particularly he's going to be talking about English language learners. After that, there's lunch and some time to network and a breakout session. And then we have something called the Dynamite Teacher Hour Power. And that's where the teachers are going to share their expertise. And I don't have all those memorized right now, but we have at least 5 sessions from different presenters. And they're going to basically be talking about virtual learning and transitioning and pivoting and all those things. And then Sarah and Wendy are going to do a coordinator session during that time as well. And then that'll be the end of our fun-filled, exciting day of learning.
Great. That sounds awesome. I wish I was going to be around, but
I know we'll have another time. It's okay. It's okay. It's a lot. 2020 has been a very eye-opening year. Oh, lots of things happening in 2020.
Okay, and finally, the regulations. I know this committee has been working over the last couple of years to look at issues associated with the regulations and identification and service of gifted students. And so last June, we opened the regulations, and it was supposed to be on a little bit faster timeline, and then COVID happened. And so that kind of stalled us a little bit because the board had other pressing issues to deal with. But we have had the regulations with the changes that we have recommended presented to the board last month in September. And the board has asked for just some minor changes to those regulations. And they will be going before the board on October 15th. And you can, I believe I've sent you all a copy of those that you have. And just a reminder, we are in the beginning of this regulatory process. And so once the regulations go through what's called final review, although it's not really final, it's called that, final review, it will actually start through a process of government sign-offs, some of which have certain timelines that they have to adhere to, and some do not. And this could be very lengthy, or it could be rather quick. And then once that happens, it gets posted on the town hall for public comment, and it will be open for 60 days, that public comment period. And when that period happens, I'll be sending out notification to all the gifted coordinators in the field. So they'll have an opportunity to comment if they want to. We certainly appreciate both positive and constructive criticism to the changes, potential or proposed changes. And it's also, I think, important for organizations across the state to come together and submit their collective responses as well. Oftentimes when this happened in 2000, it occurred in 2008 or 2008, I believe, when we were open for public comment, and we did have 800 public comments. But oftentimes what happened was an organization made a comment with regard to the regulations, and then other individuals seconded the organization's comment. So while they didn't specifically say every point that the organization did. They said, I'm in favor of the comments made by this organization. So I would ask the organizations if they would, sooner than later, within the 60-day public comment period, look at those regulations, make comments, and let their members know what those comments are going to be, so that if they just want to state that they are in favor of the comments made by the organization, that would be important. Of course, when the proposed regulations, if they are approved at this meeting here in October, then they're available for the organizations to start thinking about how they want to comment well in advance of the 60-day comment period. And I think that should give you some time to get together as organizations to decide how you want to comment on the regulations. And then from there, once the comment period's over, the board will take into consideration all the comments made, and they may make changes based on those comments to the regulations. And then once they're approved by the Board of Education again, they will go through government sign-offs again. And I will say last year, or last time this happened, it took 5 years to get through the process from start to finish. Now, I hope it doesn't take 5 years this time around, but it could. Typical time frame is between 1 and 2 years, depending on the comments made or any kind of controversy with regard to the regulations. So it's not a fast process, but it is a thorough process. So we're just at the early stages of it, and I will keep the field posted as we move forward with different milestones that might happen. But again, the agenda item will be this October 15th for the board, and I believe it will be posted more towards the end of this week. Any questions about anything else that I haven't updated you on that you might have a question about? Okay. I'll turn it back to you, George.
All righty. Thank you, Donna, for that that update. There's definitely a lot going on.
Yes,
that's for sure. It's exciting to read through the draft regulations and see, some of the wording that has changed, especially the emphasis on having school divisions directly address inequities and the underrepresentation of student groups within their school systems and holding them accountable. So thank you for championing that work too.
You're also looking at including some information in the school profile at the division level for gifted accountability.
Yeah, and that actually leads right into our next agenda item too, which is brainstorming possible changes to the annual report that is submitted by the school divisions. In the information that we were sent out, we have a illustration of what the report exists right now. And for those of us that deal with it, the annual report is good in the sense that it gives us a lot of raw data to work with. But the issue is the hours of number crunching and historical data you have to pull from your own school information systems to really get at the issues that are facing gifted education in a school system. The numbers are great, but it's only the beginning. And I think that's something that, we've, as an organization, looking at the numbers, like just because you identified, 25 students one year or something like that doesn't mean you're making progress. And so modifying and making some changes to the annual report to make it more descriptive so that it could be presented to a board easily is part of our work today. If you look through the, if you've had a chance to review the regulations, you can see some of the changes, especially, as far as, looking at the inequities in the school system and the different groups that are underrepresented. And right now, that data is not clear from the state report. And so our job today really is to figure out what possible changes we can propose to the state report so that all divisions can access important statistics about their gifted learners without having to go through a very sometimes extensive process to get to that data. And on a personal note, it takes a long time. I've had to dig through data and pull reports and answer questions that weren't offered on the state report. And it takes a very long time. And especially when we have, in our state, we have gifted coordinators and divisions who have other responsibilities. And gifted education isn't the only thing that is under their supervision. And so they don't have the hours of time, and divisions don't have, some divisions don't have the resources to say like, hey, we need this data analyzed. So the more efficient that we can make our state report, and the more easily accessible to the information that we can, the better that we can make the information more easily accessible, the better that, the more effective this state report will be. And so our task really is like, how can we make this better? Looking at the, Don, if you want to speak to the gift education data samples from Indiana that we sent out, that were sent out. This is an example of one state's information for its school systems. Is that correct?
Yes. And it's by no means perfect. And it might be that I share my screen. I don't know why it won't. Okay, let's see. Okay, my internet's stable. Doesn't like it when I share my screen, I guess. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so this was just a data sample that we have looked at in the past, and it really provides information, not only, in terms of where some issues might be with underrepresentation, but also timeline issues like overtime or, and you'll see, in the graph below, the percentages identified in 2015 versus 2016 and kind of what that chart looks like. It provides the number of high ability students is what they're calling them. And then, highlights different areas. And that I think is a real plus to have in terms of things that we consider is places where the report will actually highlight areas and draw attention to them where there is underrepresentation or, within a certain not that it has to match perfectly, but within a certain percentage, 5 or 10%. I think it's 5% is what we're asking for, within 5%, and it's highlighted so that it's something that can be easily pointed out to both community members and to the school division itself, so that they can see these are areas that you have issues with. Please keep in mind, part of why this is going to be so helpful to divisions and why we need to really think about how we structure this is that close to 60% of our gifted coordinators do not have a background in gifted education. So it's going to be important that we provide a tool that can be useful to them and easily understood. Also, we have about a 20% turnover rate every year. And so that even compounds the problem of someone stepping in new who's really may not necessarily have a background in gifted education, and then they're being held accountable for making sure the program is viable for all students, and that there's an opportunity, and one in which the division promotes for all students to be considered for the program. And we need to provide tools that do that. So this is just one that we found out there, and I'm sure there are others. But I'd like to start the conversation today about the pluses, things that we may consider that even aren't on this kind of high ability report. And let's go to the next page. This is just like the pie chart, and it shows this statewide. And I don't know if that buys you anything to see a statewide perspective on a division report, but it certainly is important to provide both the division's student population as well as the composition of the, in this case, high ability learners or our gifted students. And they provide both the percentages as well as the pie chart for free and reduced lunch. And then on this page is some achievement, and I think it's gonna, it might be something that we really look closely at what we can measure that would be the same for every school division, because some may not offer certain tests or things like that. So we have to think about what are the things that we could measure that would be important for every school division. And this is the bottom table shows the percentage of high ability students in each grade that did not attain a pass plus in math or in language arts. And if the percentage is higher than 10%, it's highlighted in yellow. And that's something that we could also do in terms of highlighting, but it could be that there's certain SOL scores that we look at. I don't know, this is what we'll be discussing today, giving your opinion on, and there may be things that aren't listed on this sheet, and there should be, that we consider. The other up here at the top is pass rates on the ISTEP test that they have. Language arts and math, just a chart. And then they look at advanced placement for their advanced placement students, and the numbers that they have, the number of students that took the AP exam, and then their potential scores on those. and versus district performance. And then looking at PSAT scores on that. And then all this goes back to student growth, being able to show student growth and successful performance in the areas that we would anticipate successful performance for gifted kids. Oh my, my cat has decided, or my son's cat has decided to come visit us. And they just have some different numbers there with regard to that. So I'll leave it open to you, George, and I'll stop sharing my screen, go back. Everybody has a copy of that report. And this is where we would have had breakout groups, but it's a little bit more difficult under this live scenario. And since it's the first for me doing this, and actually think we are the first advisory committee to do this, I didn't want to tackle that. So sorry. We're just going to do it whole group. And I see Melanie.
So since this is my area of research regarding underrepresentation, I have a couple questions around the document, the model that you shared, and what we could consider when looking at our representation, specifically based on how Virginia defines underrepresentation. Because the areas, the gap areas in the Indiana model that you shared with us were specifically around socioeconomic and what grade levels students weren't either being tested or identified. And I think we can, since we do have the data, disaggregate based on economically disadvantaged English language learners and historically underrepresented ethnicities. And there are a couple statistical matrices that can be used, represented by the Office of Civil Rights, the representation index and the equity index that districts can look at. And I can put an article in the chat if you want specifics around that, so that you can see that it's not so much of getting parity, but it's that your groups that are identified are reflective of the community at large. And so that it is, it's not about a cutoff score, it's about making sure that representation is who's in the community. So if let me know if you want that article, it's helpful.
Yes, would love to see that article. And then I can, for the members that aren't here and stuff, I can also push that out to in an email. If you can link it or attach it for an email to me, I can certainly send it out.
So Ms. Poland, just looking at the data, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm looking at the right data. So we have not been assessing the socioeconomic status of students. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, in the report that we currently have, that information is not there. We collect a lot of information at the State Department level that is not presented in that report. And if it is presented in the current annual report, it is not in a format that's very user-friendly. It takes a lot of mathematical calculations to see, to determine anything. A raw number, you can't tell if you're doing good or bad or not. It's just a number. And so there's a lot of data points that are collected in the end of year report. And certainly English language learners, socioeconomic status are two of those things that are collected along with the information that we already have dealing with race and ethnicity, both on referred students and identified students, which would be helpful to do a comparison between those two. Of the referred students, you know, how many were actually identified? We don't know that. We just know so many were referred in the year, but and then we know total how many kids were identified, but we don't know of the referred students that year, how many were identified, what was their characteristics like. All those kinds of things are potential things that we could add to the annual report so that it becomes more informative about how the division's doing. But yeah, the current report is nothing but numbers and doesn't address socioeconomic status or English language learners. Although that information has been made available to gifted coordinators through SSWS. They can see that, but they don't have, that's not part of the annual report as it stands right now.
The formula that is discussed in this particular article looks at the whole population of a division based on the different identification groups. And then within those groups, what is the percentage of students that are being identified or even recommended and nominated? And that way you can, when you're looking at that data, you can determine the next steps. How do we then, if we have underrepresentation of our Black students, if we have underrepresentation of our English language students, what are the next strategies to do to increase their opportunities for high ability learning opportunities? So it gives you a nice jumping off point for that.
That's exactly what we need. Go ahead, Corey, sorry.
I have a quick question. No. I have a quick question because I'm not in that role, so I don't know what that report looks like. But is there any place where when you're looking at those that are referred versus those who are identified, that there's any sort of reasoning as to why they may not have been successful in identification, or is there just
straight numbers?
Maybe in anecdotes, you know, written down somewhere by the tester. Nothing. Okay.
It's just, yeah, it's just numbers.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to know. Because that might be something that we, I don't know if that's something, I don't think it's anything that you would put in a report, but that would be some really interesting information to know. If, you know, those that are not successful, then you could, from that information, then cultivate some opportunities for those students who were not successful. Maybe they would be placed in an emerging scholars type of program or what have you. That could be, you know, they would have some targeted activities and lessons that maybe they would complete, that maybe the second time around, if they did go through the identification process, possibly be successful in that realm. Just thoughts.
I think once, you know, that is something that once certain groups of students may be highlighted as being underrepresented, then we could definitely provide some sort of document to the field that says when you're looking at underrepresentation in this particular group, or, you know, across the board in certain areas, these are some steps you might take within your division to ferret out how, you know, what's happening, and certainly looking at the reasons behind why the group of kids were referred but then didn't get into the program like you were talking about is going to be important. And those are like a guidance document that I think would be very helpful for understanding the annual report and how to use that information to move forward have the division move forward.
Ms. Poland, the other thing that I noticed, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I noticed between the document that you just showed and I guess the report that Virginia uses is the document that you showed used percentages along with the total number. And I was wondering, do we have a percentage document or chart that we could use? Because sometimes when you see just a regular number, it's not really saying anything to you. Sometimes
Exactly.
when you have a percentage, it speaks more to you than just a raw number. So do we have anything that shows a percentage? And I saw that they had they went a step further, even with the percentage. They had like a pie chart and a graphing chart, a bar chart, whatever. It's been a long time since I took math, but that helps illustrate the differences between the numbers. So do we have anything like that?
Well, we don't currently have that in our report, but all those things are things that we can do. And it's recommended that we do those things, that we move to a percentage model, because part of what the raw numbers do is they, if they're small, and some divisions across our state are small divisions, and they have small numbers, especially by a grade, if you're looking at a grade level, then they won't be represented and the number will be masked. So a percentage can oftentimes be provided instead, and it's a little bit more informative. So whether we do both, have raw numbers and percentages, or just use percentages, that's something I think we can work on, because I'm pretty sure we are going to be tasked with looking at how do we make changes to this report. The other thing is the department has hired a consultant group that's actually helping to make all these pretty pictures and graphs and things like that. And so as a result, I think at some point we'll be working with them to make sure that the representation that we see visually is what we want to see. And so while the current annual report doesn't have percentages, it doesn't have any kind of pictures or anything like that, I think once we get rolling on this and we get partnered up with the group that's been contracted to do the school profile report, then we'll be able to make those kind of suggestions and changes so our report will look totally different from what it looks like right now. Those are all good, valid points to talk about.
So Donna, you know that I am in the thick, I've gotten my data back. I'm not finished yet. I haven't defended yet, but I should be defending in the near future. And my dissertation is, I didn't do the referral piece, but it's about identified gifted students in the 8 regions in the Commonwealth of Virginia for the past 3 years, 2016 to 2019. And so I do agree with the woman who spoke earlier. I can't see your name, I apologize. But Melanie, that we definitely need to, we have the data to look specifically at economically disadvantaged students, Black or African American, Hispanic, because it took a lot of work to crunch those numbers. It took a lot of work. And I have great information, but it took a lot of work. And I used 3 different formulas with the RDCI, the RI, and the equity allowance formula, and the representation index and the equity allowance formula are the 2 formulas that my research states that are great representatives of the data. The information, I haven't put it out there quite yet. I'll be defending soon, but it's very, it's good information to have, because I think the saying is, when you don't expect, you need to inspect what you expect. And I think sometimes we think that we're doing great, but sometimes if you don't look at it, you don't know if you're doing so great. Certain regions are doing better than others. And I'm interested for somebody to do part 2 of the study to find out what they're doing as far as a qualitative study. But the equity allowance formula does provide context to the numbers, as Melanie was talking about, so that it's just not the data, and they are percentages. So I do agree that we need to take that approach. The question is, what are we, I mean, I know that you were talking before, and we've had lots of conversations about bringing a consultant on. It just depends on what they're willing to do and how they're going to do it and put the man hours in, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, this will be, just like it is currently with the annual report, it pulls from the end of year report, the data that the school division provides, and then all that stuff is put into a pretty picture based on a computer program. And so I think it's going to be what we want. And this group works with people across the country, and they're out of California, and I was quite impressed with their presentation to us and all the graphics and things like that they had created and done. And I think, once we kind of have an idea of what we want, how it shows visually, maybe something that they can, we can have an idea, oh, we'd like a pie chart, and they'll say, no, this is really a better way to represent that data. That's what they do. That's their business, is representing data in visual format. So, I'm not worried about the man hours or things like that. They'll be under a contract to help us get it done. And so it's just a matter of writing a program that puts all that stuff together and pulls the data like we want it, and then puts it in a visual representation like we want it.
One of the things that, I was thinking about as we were hearing this, and I'm reading the chat as far as, what do we consider? Dara mentioned, we need to consider our goals and outcomes and all of this. I think the way the current state report is really unusable by a lot of divisions as far as convincing a board that change is necessary, or even illuminating to a community that there is an issue. I mean, it requires a lot of work. And I think that, I was trying to think of how, maybe the question is, what do we normally do to really present these inequities in our school system when we're asked to? I'm picturing all these different things in my head. I think that we need, you need to know the demographics of your school population, or just your enrollment in your division over time. It would be cool if you could click, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, because all that data is already in the system, and then so you can see short and long-term trends within your division. Then you can see hey, how are our referrals? Well, these are the kids, 3, 5 year, and you can break it down like the state report card, I think, or whatever it's called now. You can pick English language learners, disadvantaged, students with disabilities. So you can click and tease those different populations out in your graph for 3, 5, and 10 years. Going along with what Melanie and Dorn were saying, how cool would it be to have a metric of some sort where it says hey, this is the number of kids in this population that you have identified this year. This is your target based upon a research formula. And so that it's you have this, you have this. And so it's an automatic glance from a school system. One of the things that I have found is the stakeholders we're trying to reach often don't look at the tables and the data tables and the numbers. They look at the graphs, and because it's a quick glance, they can see it. And so if you have a line graph of over time, you can really see that. Another cool thing that I was thinking about is we're looking at the division level. I think it's important also, especially for school systems with multiple elementary, multiple middle schools, and multiple high schools, is the ability to break it down by school. I know that in our division, we've got, there's a great range between how many students are identified in one school versus another. And again, that gives, that would empower those school systems to really drill down and be like, hey, we've got some schools that we really need to increase referrals and identifications in. I'm excited about that because I mean, the easier something is to get out and to display and even copy that graph from the page and put it in a school board presentation, the truth will come out. And the easier we can make things for folks, I think we'll start moving that needle. One of the things that I wonder often just from our discussion is, I wonder how many school systems are aware of the factors facing their school system because the data is buried.
I don't think they are.
And
I
so,
don't.
yeah, I mean, and when you're faced with like this impetus of change, you can act and you can justify the action so that we can start moving the needle forward. But those are just some things that I wrote down. Like, we need to know the division over time because like, I know the demographics of our school system is changing over the past 10 years. And gifted, I think Donna, you mentioned also the comparison of the referrals to who actually ends up being like positively identified as gifted. I think that is critical, a critical piece if we can somehow capture that because what we get now, you were absolutely right. It was, we get a tally of how many identified gifted kids we're getting. We don't know the status of how we are identifying students. And you have to drill down in like the analysis that I've had to do. I mean, it takes a long time. And it's just hard for school systems. So this is exciting. I'm excited about our work.
I think the target, I mean, the equity allowance formula is like a threshold, like the 20%. It's not like the representation index is a little bit 1-to-1. So I think the equity allowance formula, what I found that is a place, a good starting place, because that's where some people are meeting that metric. Right now, we have a lot of work to do to be 1-to-1 regarding the representation index. So it's, you could grow, you could have that. And most of the, what you're looking for is identified population percentage divided by the total. And so that's the information that you're gonna need so that they can compute that. And I think a chart will show that because there are a lot of zeros.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of zeros, and I'm gonna say, and it's not because the people aren't there. The populations are there. There are a lot, but I don't think people know.
Yeah, that's one of the points in the regulations themselves is that the annual report be presented to the school board and the community, and so it will be something hopefully that's a highlight of some kind of school board meeting. I guess it's going to be up to school divisions and advisory committees or whatever else to push to have these annual reports be more visible to the community and the school board, and certainly the regulations can require that. I think, just an internal thing that once it gets put on the school profile, certainly it won't be all the components of the annual report, but it will be some of that information will go on the school profile that will bring more visibility to program and identification issues for underrepresented populations.
We recently did a big data gathering based on each school, looking at the specific demographic and identification groups and the percentage or number of students within those groups that are identified as gifted. And I think what we're going to be doing next is talking about what does that mean There was a report that came out of Purdue called Access Denied, where they went through and looked at different states, and based on opportunities, they graded the states. So for instance, in Virginia got an A because, you know, we have opportunities available for advanced placement. There are gifted resource teachers, but we got an F in who was taking those classes. So it's that longitudinal data from, if we are identifying children, you know, let's say we increase identification based on ethnicity, and we're working steadily for identifying more students of color, you know, whatever the underrepresented group is within their division. What is that? What's the goal for when they graduate? Is it that everyone's going to be an AP? Because even in our data, I'm seeing some longitudinal disparities where children who are being identified may not be getting into those high ability advanced classes, or you know, there are probably many factors of why, but and then what does that look like? You know, because some divisions have more APs than others, and some divisions, you know, so it's going to be very varied. But I think if it can be around statewide definitions, like who is underrepresented and what does the profile of a graduate look like, and what is the ultimate goal for the high school students that come out of Virginia schools, we can then, because I know we can look at the data, but then there's always that, then what? And that's sometimes the hard part of really kind of changing practice, but there are many recommendations out there for that.
Yeah, and I think that's why a guidance document to go along with, if you're seeing these kinds of things, these are other things you need to look at or consider changing, or working on your process or policies surrounding this particular issue. And definitely that guidance document is going to be key.
It'll be critical.
Yeah, I think definitely, you know, in terms of like looking, I think it's just like you said, oftentimes there's issues why students don't move on to advanced level courses, even though they're in gifted programs and you're thinking there should be, you know, why aren't they taking these classes? And one of the committees I served on way back, probably around 2003, I think it was, although it seems like right around the corner, looked at students getting into specialized schools for science and math. And, you know, even though kids were identified gifted and were moving through certain programs, oftentimes guidance counselors were not encouraging them to apply to specialized programs like governor schools, or to take some of the advanced level AP courses, or go into IB programs, or whatever the school division might have. And, you know, after a lot of 3 years of looking at that issue, a group of people across the country, it really came down to guidance counselors. And it really showed up, you know, when you started looking at numbers of kids in gifted programs at the early age grades, and then where do those kids wind up, especially when you broke it down by different groups of subgroups of students, it really was telling. And I think that's something we can look at doing, providing that information as to, this is the number of gifted kids at 9th grade, and here's how many of them are currently in AP courses, or here's the number of kids in 11th grade, and here's how many are in AP courses and governor schools and magnet programs and whatever else might be their upper level courses that they have for students. But that's something that will if we're not able to do it through the annual report, then it might be something that's part of our guidance document that says you need to go in and break this down. If you're not showing, a certain number of kids taking advanced courses or a certain percent.
I was just going to suggest something that we did a couple of years ago, because we were looking specifically at that across the division. As a matter of fact, I was on part of the team that trained the teachers. We did a couple of sessions that were almost like, we called them booster sessions, that occurred between when school started and when the add drop period ended. And we talked to students about what are some things that you would need. I think we identified some topics, but what are some things that you would need? Is it study skills? Is it time management? Like, what are the things that you need that you think would help you be more successful in said AP class? Because we had anecdotes, of course, of some gatekeeper sort of things going on, but we really wanted to drill down and find out from the students, like, why are you not taking this AP course? Why are you trying to drop? Is it a teacher? Is it the course load? Like, what is it about this class? So that if it was a teacher, then there was some conversations that could be had on that end. But if it is, I just need some more support, then we could do that. We could provide that maybe after school or what have you. And what we found out is, particularly in the upper level classes, it was time. These children were trying to work, take AP courses, run track, play a trombone, be on the cheer squad. I mean, they were trying to do it. They were trying to do it all because they're gifted. So they feel like they can do it all. I'm a superwoman. I could do it all. But they, and then the conversation was had, especially in the booster session with time management, is you can't do it all. Let's drill down and find out, where are you trying to go after high school? And what are some priorities in which you can shift around? Because I talk about, when I was in high school a million years ago, like how I prioritized, because I was a liberal arts child. I was in band, chorus, and in drama, as you can tell, from my passion. But I did also try it all. But my mother was also a school counselor. So she talked me through. My mother was a school counselor. Started out in community college, but then went to K-12. And we had the conversation about, what is it that you're trying to do after school? And let's kind of shift through some of this stuff, because you're not going to have time to do chorus, band, drama, King's Dominion, U-Crops, and whatever else that you're trying to do, which ought to tell you, it's showing my age, I said U-Crops and King's Dominion. But, really having those conversations with children and really trying to drill down to what's really happening. Because we had what the school counselor said was happening, which was, we did have a few teachers who were coming and saying, I don't think this child is going to be successful in my class. Can you take them off my roster? But then so you're not teaching all children? I mean, you're not meeting them where, okay, so we need to have that conversation. But that wasn't my conversation to have, because I was a classroom teacher. However, we did have conversations with the students to help them prioritize what their needs were, where they were trying to go. Some of them, may have opted to not do AP Lang and do Honors English 11. I don't know, whatever. So that they would be less stressed out on trying to get through their course load. So I said all that to say that there may be some opportunities, some creative ideas that school divisions can have to really drill down and figure out, why is it that we have this number of gifted students who are of color, but they are also not in AP or upper level classes? What is it that is preventing them from being successful? in that regard.
I have a couple of things to share that I like about Indiana and agreement with what I've heard other people state. At the very top of it, this Indiana report, in that top corner, it very clearly designates if the coordinator has a license. And so one of the things in our draft of the regulations was that perhaps the coordinator should have an endorsement in gifted. So I liked how that was stated front and center at the top, and also even personnel, how many people are endorsed compared to the number of teachers. So I thought that was important. Totally agree. I think it was Dr. Berry who said, we got to have percentages. This thing needs to be readable. And I really like the chart that shows last year's compared to this year's progress at the bottom. I think that makes it usable. I wondered if Dr. Poland, are we supposed to plan ahead and begin to incorporate some things that we put into the draft of the regulations? And what I mean by that is I think some of this early access is essential. So I wondered if it needs to be a space to have a number for students who might be in a talent development program, or the number of students who are considered for acceleration and then actually are approved and move forward with acceleration. Because again, that matches what we're saying is important in the regulations, which it seems like this report should be a summary of those highlights. Definitely agree, you know, like what Corey was hinting at as far as the secondary focus. I think oftentimes in Virginia, at least in our region, we're really looking at elementary services, and we need to have more of an idea that gifted is K-12, and you don't just let the students participate in a variety of course offerings at the high school. We need to see, are they really participating or not? And I think that last piece really kind of gives credibility to it being a K-12 span. So I liked that as well. But just wondered if we could go ahead and begin to incorporate some of these suggestions, even knowing that they're not really approved and final yet.
Great summary. I'm sitting here, one of the things I've been doing is kind of writing down there. Definitely, we've been tossing out ideas of what works good on the annual report, but also what might be good for the guidance document. And I kind of think there's two strands going on here. Other thoughts?
There's one thing that I thought about is that I know from my experience being at the academic year governor school for several years, that some of the divisions found that if they were supporting students to come to a regional program, that transportation sometimes was an issue because of the rural connection of where some of those students were coming from. And so instead they had opportunities at the school that allowed the students to participate in some of the activities, but at their own home-based school, and they're not being counted in anywhere, that they're trying to meet their needs. I'm thinking of more of the high school rather than anything below that. And I do believe the North Carolina school has been under that initiative for several years, and they've had a couple layers of initiatives, and I haven't looked at it recently, but I think those students are also lost in the whole mix of reporting.
I'm just trying to understand what, how we might capture something like that. They would be identified gifted students, but yet not participating in governor schools or magnet programs, but something after school. Is that what you're saying?
Or in school, that when I would go to visit some of the regional schools that are you know, in remoter areas, that they had a plan, you know, when we would address, well, why aren't we getting more students from your school? And they had legitimate reasons. Now some things have changed just because of the ease of getting around. But I still think there are students that are not taking that, and I think we mentioned that earlier, that initiative, but the school is reaching out to come up with a plan to help them, whether it be in school or informal learning.
Okay, well, and that might be part of the guidance document of trying to figure out, like, if your numbers are low, these are things you need to maybe take into consideration or be more accountable to say, hey, we have students aren't going because it is a long drive to, say, the governor's school. So we have provided this program, but it's not captured anywhere in the annual report. So that might be something in terms of, our guidance document that we talk about.
And as that was being discussed, I started, seeing like an idea of like, we will have a period of time before these regulations come into being and the new state report created. So like we could focus on the task of the state report generation now, but then all of these other supporting documents, and even I think maybe partnering with other state organizations to really then provide training and support for all of, not just the changes, but then responding to the information. I think it's very much just seeing like a long-term, plan, like where the VACEG will then provide guidance documents. We team up with, VA Gifted and other, organizations to really like, hey, we're going to have this data coming out. We're going to need to help these people who may or may not have training in gifted education to tackle some of the issues. What do we do?
Yeah. Exactly. That's my thoughts exactly.
And that's really cool because that is like change, like leading change, like where we are moving things forward in a methodical manner instead of here's the data, have fun with it, everybody.
Exactly.
Your day. So I mean, because that is a real issue that we're going to face is people saying, okay, I've got this problem. I've never taught gifted kids before. What do I do? And so I think that's going to be cool.
Well, George, I was going to say the data from the VA Gifted, the teachers know what they need because they've been asking for underrepresented. When we run the data from the seminars that we have, the participants say, we want more information on underrepresented populations. That's why we got the keynote, Dr. Jackson. So to have alignment. Now, whether they partake, now we made sure that the cost was low so that, because we knew everything that was happening this year due to COVID, for a member, it's $25 to attend. And we made sure that on Saturdays that we did this seminar on Saturday because we didn't know if teachers were going to have substitutes. So we have a committee that meets almost weekly. Yeah, we meet weekly. And we discuss these issues and we are in alignment with whatever the data says. So, I know that VA Gifted will be a tremendous support and advocate. That's why we had Jaime Castellano at the 2019. The question is, I think there'll be more people in attendance once they see those numbers, because when we, a couple years ago, shared the data with our school principals of how their kids were faring based on underrepresented populations, principals are very competitive. And I found out that way, they are very competitive. And so once they saw that their schools, and regardless of what we put them in nice folders, we made sure that they were, we gave them to it at a wonderful, in 2015, December, we set them down, we gave them gave them folders and had their breakdown. But what principals do is they contact their friends and say, wait a minute, your kid, you have how many kids here at ODS? How many kids? And they were comparing because they wanted to make sure that their school was represented well. And I can't really blame them. So I think once those numbers come out, and the Division C, superintendents are competitive too. So they're going to want to make sure that their division is shown in the proper light. Same thing that happened when SOLs came out. Nobody wanted to be in the bottom tier. Nobody.
Right. I guess my frame of reference was like, we're going to have gifted coordinators with a problem that they don't have the training to deal with. And so we're going to have to show them like, hey, this is how, what research says, like as far as things. I mean, I think that's and you're right, getting people to attend the training, to set aside the time is going to be the hard part, because as Donna mentioned, with the turnover rate and with everything else that's going on, like the issue that we'll face is there's the data, but who's going to ensure that is, moving forward in that division? I'm just kind of thinking, maybe I'm thinking too far down the line, but
no, I agree with you, because we've had these conversations. I mean, the executive director and I was looking at this and said, this is a need. How are we going to get people here? Membership is $25. I mean, we put it on a Saturday, where I know that you don't want to take your Saturday, but we've made sure that it's available. We were even giving you 60 days to be able to 60 to 90 days to be able to access. You don't even have to show up on the day. So it's just interesting to see. I mean, August, we had about 165 people, August 4th, 165 people signed on, even in the middle of a hurricane Isaias. And I think 215 people registered, which was great. Not so much right now. So I think once the leadership comes from the top, and so once, that's those numbers, and then the administrator said, this is what we got to do, it happens.
Yeah.
I think we can harness the opportunities that this closure has revealed to us, in that physically being someplace may not be an advantage, if you're getting folks from traveling, but we can use, live streaming, recording videos, online webinars, and just really look at this kind of the situation we're in right now, and how we can build more opportunities to access and create access for folks who just can't fit it in right now. I mean, it's hard to travel to another city, even just for a day, especially if you have families or other responsibilities. But if you can sit at your computer for an hour, that's a lot easier.
I agree with that. I'm Region 7. It's a 7-hour trip to Richmond. And a lot of that, we just don't come to those opportunities because it's a 2-day trip then.
Yeah.
So, the technology allows Region 7 to be involved in all this.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I know we're getting close here on the time. I have some ideas for, we've been doing a lot of brainstorming, and some people, I'm hoping you've jumped in if you had thoughts or ideas. If not, now's the time, but I'm gonna give you a few minutes, and then I'm gonna launch into some things I've written down, and maybe where do we go from here in terms of brainstorming. Other thoughts? And I know everybody's not in on this meeting, and I know, I'm sure they'll have some thoughts, but what I'm going to do is at some point kind of loop back in with the George, Sarah, and Doran, and make sure I have things written down, but I've been writing down ideas for the guidance document, ideas for the annual report. And what I'll do is get those out like a separate document from the minutes, but get those out to everyone and see if we can't add to it, or put some additional information that we kind of want to capture to keep in the back of our minds, like the formulas and percentage recommendations and things like that. And then we can start looking at, especially like going back, like Sarah did, to the regulations. Are there things in the regulations that are specifically being addressed that we haven't captured, or maybe we don't need to capture, or maybe we do, in the data that's presented in the annual report. That would be one thing. And then are there other things with this particular information that we collect? Is it something that would be best served to present over time, or is it like a snapshot's going to be the way to look at it? Or do we break this down into not only division level, but school level? And then some of these things might be, for instance, maybe we don't break it down on the annual report into school level, but we provide that information through SSWS to the gifted coordinator so that they can break it down by school. And, as part of that, our recommendation in the guidance document would be to go to SSWS and break it down by school if you're, having these issues or something. Those are things we might consider. I'm open to suggestions on how to proceed once I get this out and get some more ideas. People, especially people who weren't here today, have a chance to comment and provide some ideas in either of those two kinds of documents. Other thoughts?
Just a thought when you were saying that, like the best way to present it, I wonder if, I don't know if this is premature idea, but having like a mock-up of like, hey, this would be the type of graph that we would have. I mean, it could be just like a make-up, graph. This is because, again, like just for the visual learners in the group, it might be easier to do that instead of sorting through like a list of things. Just a little mock-up of, hey, this is what this type of graph would be. This would be a table that would have these items with fake data, just to give us a starting point, maybe. Like I said, I don't know if that's premature at this point, but just an idea I thought I'd throw out there.
Well, I would need someone else to be able to do that, because I am not the master of creating all those kinds of things. I know it can be done in Excel and some different programs, but I'm not the master. I can hand draw them, but I'm not the master of creating those kinds of tables, graphs, pie charts, longitudinal data.
I can help.
I don't mind helping with that. I don't mind helping with that, Donna.
Great. Okay. Other thoughts or ideas?
I put this in the chat, but it seems like since there is a number of steps that will need to be taken to accomplish this, we should probably lay out a logic model or Gantt chart of what this will look like, so that it doesn't seem like it's just willy-nilly, oh, we're going to add this and add that, so that it's kind of maintaining that accountability piece. And so we can see the end in sight. We can even backwards design it. This is what we want. These are the things we need to do to get there.
Great idea. It's been a long time since I worked with a Gantt chart, but mine was all computer generated.
Well, and I think with that, we're also going to be identifying maybe how we can help the gifted coordinators share the statewide or even region data in a better way, so that they don't have time to necessarily do all that. And it was mentioned earlier, giving them something that would say, all right, here's the region. And I'm thinking more region right now. I don't know. I mean, you could do state, then region, get it down there, and then here's our division. Because we know that the school boards have their initiatives and how they can help supporting and making sure some of these things happen too. They're very much a stakeholder in the process.
Okay. Got that written down. But going back to the Gantt chart, is that something you'd want to undertake, Melanie? And then we can send it out to the group and do you have a program that does them or?
There are you can do it in Excel or Google Sheets, but I would appreciate a partner or that would be helpful. Oh, Airtable, I've never heard of that. I'll have to look at that. But I think, there are a number of different ways to do that. To kind of look at the process, but having a partner would be helpful.
I would volunteer, but I don't know, the creation of it is not the part that I would be the strongest in. It would more be the comments on the process. The steps. If you're looking for somebody to do the creative part. I mean,
I have a template.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just filling it in. And
process?
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else want to volunteer?
So when is this due? Because I don't.
Sooner as opposed to later. You cut yourself off, Dorn, but okay.
Sounds like you have a dissertation hanging over your head right now.
I must yeah, I'm gonna leave this alone.
Finish that first.
I put in the chat, I'm willing to work with Melanie.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can you, Melanie, can you say more about what you think, what does this look like when you're talking about the logic model? What do you see this looking like?
So in the ones that I've created, because I create logic models all the time for the work we do in Albemarle County. It's a very strange thing that I enjoy, but I'm just looking at the long-term goals. How do we plan on accomplishing them? The midterm goals to get to that, and then the short-term goals. That's the logic model aspect of it. And within that, you can kind of look at like what specifically you're trying to change. For a Gantt chart, that lays out over a timeline of accomplishing those things. So, and you can document how long it'll take. So is this a 3-year plan? Is this a 2-year plan? Do we expect this just in a series of months? And then, and just so that we can lay it out, and it's a visual way of laying it out, almost like a sideways bar graph, so that people can see, well, we're here now, we want to get there. These are the things we have to do to get there. So, but I mean, you would have both, you could have both of them. And in the logic models that I've created, we look at, like, for the long term, that's about like mindsets and policies, and then midterm are your practices, and then the short term are just like knowledge and understandings. So it's just being very, very strategic and purposeful with everything, because it helps keep everybody on the right track.
So that's a good point. Dr. Poland, do you see this as a year-long project? Do you want recommendations for this by the end of the year? Or do you envision this being longer than that?
Well, I definitely think, in the year time frame, we need to look at having something fairly tangible at the end of the year to present, to work with a it's called Clarion, but they're, instead of a C, it's a Q. Clarion is the group that's doing all the DOE data representation for school profile. So I think, some of that stuff might be done pretty soon if it gets incorporated into school profile. But the rest in terms of how the annual report looks, I think we need to have something done by the end of the year on that. And when I worked in the shipyard, I used a Gantt chart, and we had, like 500 different items at the start of the year that started all at the same time. And then they progressed and tied to each other till you got to the final thing, which was launch the boat. So you're trying to build the boat all the way through. So you have a lot of things that are connected and some that aren't, but then feed into other things that are, so there was a lot of things that were going on at the same times, but eventually everything got to the end. So in terms of looking at how are we going to move through between now and the end of the year to at least come up with some recommendations in terms of what should be on the annual report based on, the regulations, the information that's available, because some things may not be available in the end of year report data that's collected. But then how do we represent that? What's the best representation of that data? And then once we get to that point, it may be that, the guidance document comes at some point afterwards. I think we'll be building a lot of information as we go through to make a decision on, how that data is going to be used. That's going to impact the guidance document, because we'll be the way we represent it is going to kind of dictate how we're thinking the data is going to be used. And then that's something that we'll capture in the guidance document. So in a way, we'll be building the guidance document at some level as we go. But as you know, when we create documents here, it's a lot of writing and a lot of pulling that information together into one document from different subgroups that have actually, written a piece of it or whatever else. So I think that's going to be a little bit more down the line. And also, the regulations could have some major changes in them.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know that. What the final look will be. I think this is a great start, and everyone seems to be in favor of it, but we just never know. It could be some other information that people feel like needs to be highlighted in that in the regulations, and in turn we need to highlight in our annual report.
So my recommendation to start is to think about first the logic model and what do we want, what are we expecting, after the regulations have gone through the approval process. And then the Gantt process would be for something that would be available for the divisions so that they would know the steps that they need to take. Because, just going in and saying, okay, you're going to gather all this data, if folks have no idea why, we have to make sure that there's a semblance of understanding of the stakeholders.
Yeah, I think the data is stuff that's already collected through what's called the end of year report. And so they're collecting all that data as it is right now and submitting it to the DOE. It's just a matter of us being able to pull it down, or a computer program to pull down. And then once all that information is pulled down into the annual report, then certainly the guidance document is going to be important of how you use that information for divisions. But I'll agree, in terms of looking at the logic model for our group and then a Gantt chart of how we're going to move through. I don't see the Gantt chart being too complicated because we don't have a lot of time here, but I think we can certainly kind of outline the steps we're going to take to move forward to wind up with some recommendations and some visual maybe recommendations that we make at the end on the annual report.
When would you like, when are these documents, when would they need to be made available?
Well, I think we would definitely want to have them by the December meeting.
Okay.
But I think the sooner we can get started working on them and maybe even send them out to the group for comment and come back and refine them and then move forward. I'm going to also do the listing. You know, that would be one of the first items on the thing, is to list things that we've already talked about and brainstormed today, and, you know, see for the people who aren't here, or maybe you go back home and you think about it. Some of the ideas, you know, that you had in mind, maybe I didn't capture, or suddenly something else comes to mind you want to add to it, we can certainly do that. And then by the time we get ready for the next meeting, we have certain things under our belt already, and we can think about how are we going to tackle them at the meeting. I do want to give everybody a minute if there's something that you want to share out in terms of the next item on the agenda, the reports of members and representative groups, unless there's something else somebody wants to add to our brainstorming session.
Dr. Pola, before we close, will you give an update on summer Gov School and talk about when that information will be on the website, because the website's not updated yet. So just don't forget that at the end.
Okay, I'll actually do that right now. Some of you may know this already. We only have one webmaster for the whole Department of Education, and we definitely work her to death. I hate to say it, but unfortunately, I think there must have been 20 soups memos that got posted this last Friday, and probably every one of them has information that is linked to it. And then not to mention just the regular stuff that has to be posted, you know, for the board meeting coming up and all these other kinds of things that she's got to do. So I texted her yesterday and said, you know, when do you think this will get up? And she said this week. So what day this week? I don't know. I was hoping it would have been last Friday, but that was not the case. And she is working really hard. She has a lot on her plate. But it should be up sometime this week. Let's hope. I know for those of you who are new, we typically go around and every member can share out if they want. Some members pass. And Doran is going to also speak to this, but it's an opportunity for you to bring something, not just stuff that's usually done in your division, but something that may be different or an issue that you want to highlight for your region or whatever else. But I'll let Doran kind of lead the way.
So thank you, Donna. So when we're in person, typically what we do is I pass out a note card so that you can write down exactly how you want me to type it up and put it in the minutes. So if you don't want to write things down, I understand that, but we can put it in the chat. I think that's the second opportunity, so that because we can save the chat and I can have that when I reference it, when I create the minutes, and just, you know, let your name and your school division and how you want it written out so that I don't make any mistakes. So if you have something that you want to share that it's extremely unique, and you want to, you know, just say something, but make sure you type it in the chat with your name so that I can extrapolate it and copy and paste and put it in there just like it's supposed to be done for the minutes. I really appreciate your support. Thank you.
See, real quick, Dara asked a question about students who were accepted last year. We have given an automatic accept to 10th graders last year. So if they were in 10th grade last year, they were invited to attend the program. then they have an option to automatically get accepted this year in the same program in which they were accepted. The juniors are going to be seniors this year, and the program doesn't accept seniors, and so they will not have that opportunity. Just be the 10th graders. And again, it's their decision. If they want to apply to a different program, though, they have to start all over. But
how does that automatic accept process work? Does that come from you to the students, or does it go to the school divisions and they contact the students?
School divisions are supposed to contact the students and let them know. I've also, it's part of the changes to the website. There'll be a notification right at the top of the page on the website, but also within the documentation, both the administrator and the student guide will have that information. But basically they fill out a new cover page and a new assurances page, submit them to the gifted coordinator, and visual and performing arts students will not have to adjudicate again. They're just automatically accepted. Okay, Dorn, we'll let you run the show.
Okay, so who would like to go? Let's see, I have Sarah. Would you like to go first, or would you like, I mean, where's the chat? Because if you say pass in there, you can put the word pass and then I'll know what to do, because I can't see everybody.
So I will send you a little, not a paragraph, but a note typed up. And I just want to speak on behalf of the consortium.
Thank you.
Dr. Poland, yeah, Dr. Poland did a session for all the coordinators last week, I guess it was. And just want to reiterate, we appreciated her time and she answered so many questions. I think everyone had some angst about how to proceed with the rest of the year. And so we didn't have our annual get together in Charlottesville, which we all would have preferred. It certainly was a pretty decent substitute to have her time for. And then the consortium plans to get together again either later this fall or in the winter by that same format, and just have an hour get together with information for coordinators so that we stay in touch this year.
Thank you, Sarah. Since then, we've had, I thank you guys for following. You're a great group of people. I love you. Dara's passing, Kirsten's passing, Kim's passed, Corey has passed, Sarah passed, Cheryl passed. If I say your name wrong, please, I'm sorry. I think it's Janan, is that right? Passed. Melanie passed, George passed. And then Kim says, thank you to Sarah, George, and especially Dr. Poland for all you do. So is anybody that I'm missing? Because I know we have some new people. And if you'd like to share something, we don't mind. Rodney says he's passing. I prefer that you write it in there so it's right and tight. Anybody else? So I'm looking through the list to make sure everybody.
I guess anyone who wants to share.
Okay, does anybody want to share? Well, I hope to see you. If not, I hope to see you guys at VA Gifted Saturday. And even if you don't, even if you have something to do on Saturday, you can, oh, so Jen and like Shannon, thank you. Even if you aren't able to attend, you still can sign up and you'll have access to all the materials for at least 90 days. So don't think this is a one-stop shop. I think like I said, it's $25 for members and I think $60 for non-members. And I put a link in the chat. It's going to be a very exciting, fun-filled day of learning. So, and it's aligned exactly to all the issues that we were addressing today. So I think that's all I had. And if, I don't have anything else because no one else wanted to share anything. But I appreciate all of you. You're an amazing group of people. Amazing group of people.
I agree on that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dorn. And let's see, next thing on our agenda, Donna, do we have any public comments that were received?
No one has notified me. If you give me just a second to look at my email real quick and make sure. I don't think, I don't know how people get into the system if you're not, but no, I don't see any emails from anybody who asked to share anything. I do see an email that one of our members, Carla, cannot find the Zoom link. So because I had to send this out differently, I assume everybody received an email that had this link in it. And that's how you got on, right? So maybe her somehow.
It might have
Dawn-
confused her because it came from the Office of STEM. She might have overlooked it that way.
Oh, okay. I'll see if it says from the Office of STEM. Okay. Yeah, I can't, it's an office account. So I can't change the name on the account, but I'll see if I can't figure out a way to change it before it actually goes out. But there may not be a way to do that because it is the account name. I know I can change it in a little section where it kind of gives you a written description or something of what the meeting is. You know, it says the Office of STEM is inviting you to this meeting, blah, blah, blah. I can change it there, but the actual email address as it comes out, I may not be able to change that.
Donna, I just looked on our YouTube, our live YouTube feed to see if there were viewers and if there were any comments on there, and there weren't any. There were a couple of viewers, but there were no comments.
Okay. All right.
So I guess the next thing on our agenda is the adjournment of our meeting. So is there a motion to adjourn our meeting?
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, Janin made the motion. Dara seconded it. Let's just do this by voice. All in favor, just say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. We are, our first meeting for the 2021 school year is now adjourned at 11:59 a.m.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.